Friends, today we are going to do a full face of Clé de Peau. I am so excited. The reason why I wanted to do this video was because I wanted to correct a statement I made previously in one of my vlogs when I was playing with one of the new Clé de Peau eyeshadow quads. And I'm just going to start off with this. We'll get into the eyeshadows when I get to that part of applying, but what I wanted to tell you was I was talking about the formula of the shadows, and I was talking about how when it was explained to me, the shadows are created by like this dough, and they actually use like a mixer, and that's like pressed in and then baked. What I wanted to say was only one shadow in each quad is created that way, and that is the bottom left-hand shadow in every single quad. And it's meant to be like the primer shadow. So it's meant to be the shadow that you put down first. Of course, you don't have to, it's just suggested, and that's why it's actually created differently from the rest of the shadows. But it's meant to be the primer, it's meant to be put down first, and it's meant to help accentuate the rest of the shadows in the quad. The other three shadows are regular pressed shadows. I don't want to say regular, because Clé de Peau is very, very special. Their formula is very unique, but it is a pressed shadow versus the bottom left-hand corner, which is like that pressed dough. So I just wanted to correct myself because when I said it, I said it was all four shades, like all of the eyeshadows are created that way, which is not the case, just the bottom left-hand shadow in every single eye color quad. So with that out of the way, let's do a full face. I'm missing a couple things like eyeliner and powder, but we're just gonna go ahead and use some other things. But we're gonna start with foundation, and we're gonna start with one of my favorite foundations that I have not used in a long time. I love Clé de Peau foundations. I don't think there's one foundation that they make that I don't like. They have a foundation that has like a soft matte finish. It's not my personal preference. I still have absolutely no problem wearing it because I think it looks beautiful on the skin. But the foundation I'm gonna go for is their Foundation N foundation, and I have it in the shade BF10. And I think this is the right shade for me these days. I used to be like a B20, a B30, even an O20 or an O30, and I've just been getting paler and paler the older I get, which I guess is a good thing. I've been very good with my SPF. I should say that I've primed my skin with the SPF UV protective cream, SPF 50. That pretty much is the last step of my skincare routine every single morning. I put that SPF 50 on. So that's what I have down on my face right now. Anyway, yeah, I've just gotten paler and paler, I think because I've been much more religious in putting on my SPF. So I think this BF10 has become like my shade. So if you've been watching me for a while, you probably have seen me go through O20, O30, and even maybe B20. I think I've tried in maybe their cushion foundation. Anyway, this is BF10, that's the point. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take a little bit actually off of the cap here since I have some extra. And I'm just gonna dot it all over. This foundation is essentially, I just want to call it like a tinted cream. It really feels like skincare on the face. And I'm going to take my Clé de Peau foundation brush. They have two foundation brushes. This is, I believe, the full coverage foundation brush. Anyway, everything will be linked down below if you're curious. But I think what I liked about this reformulation of this foundation is that it is not quite as thickly moisturizing as the previous one. The previous one, I have incredibly dry skin, and I felt like I could only wear that one like in the dead of winter when I really needed a lot of moisture. Otherwise, it was almost too much. Like, it would be great if it was just a moisturizer, but in terms of it being a foundation, it was almost too much. Again, I loved it because I had dry skin, but it was really difficult for me to recommend it to anyone who didn't have dry skin. This one, as you can see, just has a much more like natural finish. It feels just as moisturizing. It feels just as nourishing as the other one, but it doesn't have that overly like super glowy, almost oily kind of appearance to it. So I think they really improved on this. That's just my observation. That's just my experience with the two versions of this. If you guys have experiences with both the old and the new version of this foundation, please share down below in the comment section, because my experience is just one of many. So would love to hear from you. I'm just going to add a bit more around my eyes. I do have a concealer, of course, to use, but just want to even out as much as I can. First, get it around my nose here. And, oh, I forgot to put earrings in. Oh, weird. All right, so there is the foundation on. Just really, really lovely. And I think the coverage is very buildable because I just put a little bit on. I find the coverage to be very light medium, but you could definitely apply more to get like a medium coverage there. So it's very versatile in that regard. And I really do love the fact that it just feels like I put on skincare cream. It's wonderful. Okay, so moving on to concealer. This is probably Clé de Peau's like iconic product. Would you agree? Their concealer, it's their stick concealer. It is one of those stick concealers that is neither too dry nor too like, you know, stick paint, like too greasy or anything. It has just a really, really lovely formula, and it's high coverage, but it doesn't look cakey, it doesn't look thick. It's actually on the thinner side, and it never really emphasizes like fine lines or anything. So it also has an SPF in here. What is it? It's like 22, 27. I knew it was like a weird off number. So SPF 27, and I have this in the shade, I believe, 1 Ivory. Yeah, 1 Ivory, which is the lightest shade. So like I said, this is pretty high coverage, so I'm just going to lightly draw some on because I don't need a ton, especially with that nice coverage of the foundation. I'm gonna put it on my sunspots though. And just gonna take that same brush and just work it out. So super easy to blend, which I enjoy. And despite the fact that it has like a real kind of like slip to it, it doesn't feel overly silicone-y. Because I feel like products that have a lot of silicone in them, the longer you wear them, the drier it feels. At least that's my experience again. And I've experienced that with some like concealers, lipsticks that are really like overly silicone-y, they have that like crazy slip to them. I find them to be eventually very, very drying on the lips. And I don't know what this is actually formulated with, if it does have a lot of silicones, but it has like a nice slip to it, but it doesn't have that silicone feel. It just feels very, very, actually quite emollient. So I love this concealer. It has iconic status for good reason. Okay, I don't have a Clé de Peau powder because I love the Clé de Peau loose powder, and that I believe is not available in the US anymore. I do believe it's available elsewhere, but it's not available in the US anymore. I don't know what they're doing with it. I hope they bring it back or some version of it back. And in fact, I was never a fan of loose powders until I started using Clé de Peau powder. This is probably 5 or 6 years ago at this point, and I fell in love with it. I was like, oh my God, is this what loose powder is supposed to do? It was just magical. It looked so beautiful on my skin. It was like brightening, and it was super fine, so it didn't look dry on my skin. Anyway, it was divine, but not available. So I decided to pull out the Shiseido Synchro Skin Invisible Silk Loose Powder in the shade Radiant. And I decided to go with this one because Shiseido is Clé de Peau's sister company. Well, I should say Shiseido owns Clé de Peau. So I thought, why not? And I have used this powder before and I do enjoy it. So I'm gonna use my Refer number 30 brush, big fluffy powder brush. I'm gonna go into this powder. This one has like a, what am I trying to say? A net mesh kind of top. And if you just kind of bounce your brush over the net, you'll pick some up. And I do really like this powder because it gives me a very soft finish. But you can see it definitely takes down the shine, definitely sets down my makeup. If I'm worried about it creasing or doing anything weird, this will definitely prevent that. So that is the Shiseido powder. Let's move on to bronzer. So I had this bronzer for it felt like a gazillion years, and I finally decluttered it because I was like, oh my God, I've had this forever. And I love this bronzer. This bronzer introduced me to, wow, Clé de Peau really introduced me to a lot of firsts, but this bronzer introduced me to bronzers with a peachy undertone, because up until then, I feel like I had only experienced, and again, this is a gazillion years ago, but only experienced bronzers that were really orangey, or bronzers that were more like contour, or bronzers that had a real red base to them, which I do enjoy. But this has a nice kind of in-between orange and red undertone, very peachy undertone, and it is a delight because it looks so healthy on the skin, And if like orange or red undertone doesn't work for you, I bet the peach would, because it's kind of like in between. So anyway, I had decluttered this, and then they were so kind enough in sending me a new one. I was so excited. So their bronzers are split pan. So this is shade number 1, and it's called the Bronzing Powder Duo. And I just use my brush in both. I don't really choose between one or the other, and maybe that's what gives me the nice kind of peachy undertone. Okay, I'm going to use a Sonia G Master Face Brush. All of my Sonia G bronzer brushes are dirty. Like I said, I'm just going to go into both sides of the pan here and just apply. I hope you guys can see the peachiness there. It's so beautiful. You can even wear it as a blush if you wanted. And I would say you could probably do that if you want to use this as a bronzer and this as a blush. I would say go for it. And it blends out so smoothly. I put it on a little bit heavy over here for you, so I hope you can see. Can you see that peachiness? It's so pretty. Such a pretty bronzer tone. I don't know if you guys can notice, probably not because it's so subtle, but there is the slightest like satin sheen to this bronzer too. So it's not like a really dry, flat matte at all. And I put it kind of heavy on my forehead, hoping you guys could maybe see it. But it's there, I can see it in person. Let me just run some down my nose, and over here, maybe you can see it there too. Yeah, it's really pretty. Such a pretty shade. Okay, so that is their bronzer. Let's go to blush, and they have a lot of beautiful blush duos, but I just love their cream blushes. They have 4 shades, of which of course I have all of them. I took out all 4 because I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use. I think I'm gonna go with, I always go with number 4 because to me that's the most neutral. It's actually probably the most cool toned. Here's number 4. I don't know where that huge dent came from. Probably in one of my beastie moves, I just stuck something in there. But let's see, number 2 is probably the most neutral. It's just like a straight up pink. And then number 3 is like a corally orange. And then I was thinking about using number 1, which has a slightly redder tone to number 2. Let me use this. I'm gonna use this Laura Mercier Cheek color brush. I really love the shape of this brush. Is that nice? It's like a flat paddle, but it's like rounded, but kind of comes to a point. It's really neat. Anyway, I'm going to just pick up a little bit of this because this is a deeper blush shade. I want to just have like a light kind of application of it. Putting that right on top of the bronzer. I think I put too much on. And good thing these Clé de Peau blushes blend out really beautifully. I think this will look a little bit more normal once I get like eyeshadow and lipstick on. But yeah, it looks a little intense right now. Okay, so that is the number 1 cream blush on. It does look really intense right now, right? It will look a little bit better once I get other color on. Highlight, oh my gosh, this is one of my, I'm gonna say this a lot, this is one of my favorite Clé de Peau products, which is their Luminizing Face Enhancer. And this is another product they just recently redid. I pulled out 3 of them because these are the ones I use the most. So this one is 203 Sunset Brilliance. This is really nice if I wanna add a highlight, like almost like a blush topper, because you can see all the peach in there. And then this one, which is Golden Galaxy, I use this as straight up highlight the most out of all the shades I'm about to show you. And this one is a great kind of like bronzer topper. This is number 22, Shooting Star. So if I want like a really reflective cheek, I'll use all 3 kind of on top of what I've got going on. But I think I'm just gonna stick with 202, which is just the highlight version, and just apply that like normal highlight. I've got my Sonia G mini cheek brush, and this highlighter, or I should say this revamp of these luminizing face enhancers, really amped up like the highlight reflective quality of these. Their previous luminizing face enhancers are ones that I always reached for if I wanted just something very light, like a light little touch. These are not the case. These are really highly reflective, very, very almost wet looking. Do you guys see that? So they really amped up these highlights. They're very, very gorgeous highlights. And I know a lot of people are turned off by the Clé de Peau highlights because they think they're very micro glittery, but that is only the overspray on top of the luminizing face enhancers. Once you get through the overspray, which has micro glitter in there, they're completely smooth like this, like really smooth, wet looking highlight. So you definitely just wanna get it, unless you like the micro glitter, then you may wanna milk that overspray. But if you don't like it, just get through it and you'll really enjoy like a very smooth, reflective highlight. Okay, eyebrows. I have the Clé de Peau eyebrow pencil. These are refill. Most of their products are actually refillable, which is very exciting. And this is in the shade, I can't find it. Oh yeah, it's on the actual refill. So this is in shade 204. And the shape of the Clé de Peau pencil is, it's almost like a chisel tip, but it's like oval. So it's like long, but it's kind of rounded. And then one side has a spoolie. So it's a really nice pencil. I really like this refillable system. It's very easy, but it doesn't feel like chintzy at all. Okay, eyebrows done. Now for eyeshadow. So let's see, what eyeshadow quad do I want to use? I've already used a couple for you guys, and so I don't want to use the same ones. I just have to figure out which ones they were. So this one definitely, because I can see all of my messy work in there. And this one is number 7, Starlight Splendor. So I've used this one for you, so I'm not going to use that one. Oh, and I've used this one, yeah. I can see my messy work in there as well. I've used this one for you guys. And this one is number 3, Sun-Dried Driftwood. I think I want to use this one, and I believe this is the one that Benjamin Pkwy used on me when I was at the Clé de Peau event. And Benjamin Pkwy is their global color director. And this one is number 4, Ocean Sunrise. And Benjamin, if you're watching, let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if this is not, in fact, the one that you used, but I think it was. I really should have written this down, but I think it was. Okay, so when looking at this one, here is that primer shade, the very kind of unique formula, dough-like formula shadow, and then the rest of these are pressed shadows. So I'm gonna take Benjamin's advice, and I'm gonna start with this shadow, and I'm just gonna apply it all over my lid. I'm gonna take Sonia G's Jumbo Blender brush. This shadow has such a creamy feel to them. In fact, they all do. They all have a really, really creamy feel to them. But this one especially, you can even see it. Let me show you. You can even see it, like my brush marks in there. Doesn't it look like a cream shadow? It's really cool. This has such a gorgeous appearance. I feel like if I just used this shadow, it's almost like the lingerie equivalent of eyeshadow. You know how Prada has all those like slip dresses with just a little bit of lace on them? They're all over for fall. I feel like this is the eyeshadow equivalent of that. I'm gonna take my BK Beauty 501 brush. I'm gonna go into this shade up here. It's like the mid-tone brown. And add that to the outer corner. I'm gonna work this in. Ooh, yeah. This shadow just glides right over that primer shadow. Do you see how it diffused it? Ooh. Ooh, that worked like a charm. Okay. I'm really excited right now. Wow, that is very exciting because that just blended out really beautifully. Okay, I'm gonna take the 502 brush from BK Beauty and I'm gonna go into the camel shade, the lighter brown shade here. And I'm gonna add that into the socket line area, just a little bit on like the center of my lid. Can I just say, Clé de Peau is officially probably the only brand that when they reformulate stuff, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. Because these eyeshadow quads, I think, are an improvement over their previous eyeshadow quads, which you guys know I loved. These luminizing face enhancers, I think is an improvement over their previous. The lipsticks, like everything that they've done has been an improvement. And I can't say that for a lot of other brands. I usually get very, very nervous when other brands do it, but when Clé de Peau does it, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's like I'm waiting for it. It's like, okay, what are we doing now? Woo, that's not an easy achievement. Okay, let's move over to the very dark, deep chocolate brown here, and I'm gonna use that to deepen up my lash line. And I'm gonna use my BK Beauty 210 brush and just work this into my lash line. I'm gonna add just a little bit to the lower lash line here. Okay, now that I have that darker shadow kind of lining my eyes, I feel like my actual eyeshadow isn't dark enough. So let me deepen that up a little bit. Did I overdo it? Maybe a little. No, I think it looks fine. It looks fine. Wow. Wow. I feel like I should go out tonight. Okay. All right, Clé de Peau. I don't have, let me just be sure. Yeah, I don't have a Clé de Peau mascara going on right now. That's kind of a shame because I do like their mascara. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and curl my lashes and just throw on my Lancome Lashy Doll waterproof mascara that I've been wearing quite a bit. I'm really trying to use this up because I have too many mascaras going right now and they're just gonna go bad before I get a chance to get some good use out of them. So I pulled out two of their lipsticks. I've worn both of these colors so often. One is Triumphant Tawny, which is this one. You guys have seen me wear this like a gazillion times, so let me put that aside. And then this one is Tantalizing Tan, which is a little bit warmer, but kind of the same idea. So I pulled out also one of their Shine lipsticks. I think that's what it's called. And this is an Influential, and this is like a very soft pink color. And these are like a little bit more moisturizing. The formula is a little bit softer. So I think I'm gonna use this. I have worn this before, but I don't know that I've actually worn this for you guys. So let me put this on. Such a pretty and pink color, isn't it? And I thought I would pull out one of their Sparkles glosses. And this is in the shade number 302. And I'm just gonna tap this on top. These sparkle glosses are so pretty. All right, well, I don't have plans to go out tonight, but I should, right? My only plans that require leaving this house tonight is to walk my dog. So Butters is gonna get a really glammed out mommy tonight. But I love, God, I love this eyeshadow. Oof, it's so good. It is so good. All of their makeup is so good. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what some of your favorite Clé de Peau products are down below in the comment section. And subscribe down below if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you in my next video.